A chilling wind sweeps through the small village of Salem in the winter of 1692. But it's not the cold that sends a shiver down the spine of its Puritan residents. It's something else. Something unseen, lurking in the shadows, twisting the very fabric of their devout community. It begins in the home of Reverend Samuel Parris, where his 9-year-old daughter Betty and his 11-year-old niece Abigail Williams start to exhibit behaviors so bizarre, so terrifying, that the local doctor can find no earthly cause. They contort into impossible shapes, scream as if in agony, and speak in tongues. The diagnosis? Bewitchment. What started as a flicker of fear in a single household would soon ignite a firestorm of hysteria, paranoia, and death, forever searing the name Salem into the darkest pages of American history. But the story you think you know, it's only half the truth. Let's dispel the first and most enduring myth, the image of witches being burned at the stake. Popular culture, from movies to novels, has cemented this fiery picture in our minds. But it never happened in Salem. In colonial Massachusetts, the legal punishment for witchcraft was hanging. 19 innocent people, men and women, were led to the gallows on Proctor's Ledge and executed. One man, Giles Corey, an elderly farmer, suffered an even more brutal fate. He refused to enter a plea, a clever legal move to prevent the state from seizing his land and leaving his family destitute. The court's response was medieval. Peine forte et dure, or pressing. He was laid in a field. A wooden board placed on his chest and heavy stones were piled on top, one by one. For 2 days he endured this agony. His last words were not a confession, but a defiant cry. More weight. So, if not a coven of black magic practicing witches, what truly caused this madness? The answer is a toxic cocktail of social, political, and personal anxieties. Salem was a community on edge. They were still reeling from a recent war with Native Americans, facing the threat of smallpox and navigating a harsh economic climate. They were isolated, deeply religious, and believed the devil was a real, tangible force, constantly seeking to corrupt them. Into this pressure cooker walked the afflicted girls. Were they faking it? Some historians believe so. Abigail Williams, a central accuser, was an orphan whose parents were killed in a raid. Was this a young girl's desperate, traumatized cry for attention and power in a world that gave her none? Others point to a potential physical cause. One compelling theory is ergotism, a condition caused by consuming rye bread, contaminated with a fungus called ergot. This fungus can produce hallucinogenic effects similar to LSD, causing muscle spasms, delusions, and crawling sensations on the skin, symptoms remarkably similar to those described by the accusers. Imagine an entire village, already primed to believe in the supernatural, unknowingly ingesting a powerful psychedelic. The accusations weren't random. They followed lines of existing social tension and family feuds. The first 3 women accused, Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne, were perfect scapegoats. Tituba was Reverend Parris's enslaved servant from the Caribbean, an outsider whose different cultural practices were easily demonized. Sarah Good was a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne was a reclusive woman involved in a legal dispute over her late husband's estate. They were outcasts, women who didn't fit the Puritan mold, making them easy targets for a community looking for someone to blame. When Tituba, likely under duress, confessed to witchcraft and spun tales of a diabolical plot, she gave the magistrates what they wanted: confirmation. Her confession acted like gasoline on a fire, validating the fear and triggering a chain reaction of accusations. Suddenly, anyone could be a witch. A respected church member, a wealthy landowner, even a 4-year-old child, Dorothy Good, who was chained in a dungeon for months. The trials themselves were a legal farce. The primary evidence used was spectral evidence, testimony from the accusers that they were being attacked by the apparition, or spirit, of the accused person. How do you defend yourself against something no one else can see? You can't. To deny the accusation was to defy the court and God himself, making a guilty verdict almost certain. The only way out was to confess, which meant you would live, but would be forced to name other witches, perpetuating the cycle of death and accusation. It was a perfect deadly trap. People like John Proctor, a tavern keeper who openly criticized the proceedings, soon found himself and his pregnant wife, Elizabeth, accused. He wrote a desperate letter from prison, begging for the trials to be moved to Boston, calling the Salem magistrates unjust. His plea was ignored. He was hanged. So, how did it end? As the summer of 1692 turned to autumn, the hysteria began to consume itself. The accusations grew bolder, reaching the upper echelons of society, even targeting the wife of Governor William Phips. The educated elite in Boston, like Increase Mather, a prominent minister, began to publicly question the reliance on spectral evidence, arguing it was better that 10 suspected witches escape than one innocent person be condemned. The tide of public opinion finally turned. In October, Governor Phips dissolved the special court. The remaining prisoners were eventually released. But the damage was done. Lives were shattered, reputations ruined, and a community was left to grapple with the horrifying realization that the monsters were not lurking in the forest. They were staring back from the mirror. Years later, some of the accusers and judges issued public apologies. Samuel Sewall, one of the main magistrates, stood silently in his church as his minister read his confession, accepting the blame and shame for his role in shedding innocent blood. Ann Putnam Jr., one of the most prolific young accusers, later claimed she was deluded by Satan into making her false claims. The Salem Witch Trials serve as a terrifying reminder of how quickly fear, superstition, and a failure of due process can destroy a society from within. It's a story not just about witches, but about the very human capacity for delusion, the danger of unchecked power, and the courage of those who dared to speak truth in the face of madness. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into the past insightful, please like this video, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and hit that notification bell. We'll see you next time.